Welcome to Wine and Spirits, where the tea is hot, the receipts are kept, and the spirits are occasionally alcoholic. I'm Maya Johnson.
And today we are unpacking the gender wars. We're decentering men and talking about what all the noise is about regarding submission, off life, alpha energy, what it all really means. So, what's our wine today?
It's a lot. I barely even believe it's a gender war, but we'll get into that, right? And understand this is probably going to be a multi part situation here.
Sure.
But so basically on social media in general, whether it be TikTok, IG, I don't care, YouTube, podcasts, whatever, there's like a rise in gender war discourse like in the past couple of years, right? And according to what Pew Research in 2023, 56% of young Black adults say gender relations have become more divisive online, right? So then you couple that with divorce rates declining, marriage rates too. Black marriage is down to 30% for adults, which kind of sucks. But we'll get into that. But also, then you have like all these alpha male podcasters. We all know a podcast, bro, right? And we tired of them for the most part. And then, you got women online saying they don't need men, men saying, women don't have any value if they don't submit, talking about women hitting the wall, like all of this crazy rhetoric around like relationships and things, right? And so like my personal whine is that there is no gender war. And I hate to get to mixing and mingling topics, right? But like it's crazy how like when we talk about things like racism, like you can tell a Black person, okay, we've lived in America under certain regimes since we've been here. So like our distrust of let's say like white people or systems created by white people is legitimate based on the history that we have, right? So this is why, essentially Black people can't be racist, because at this point in history, anything we do is a response to oppression we've already felt. However, when you say the same thing exists for men and women, women have been second class citizens in this country since the beginning of time, and women started off as property in the same exact way. So when we say there is no gender war, there's essentially women who are deciding that they no longer want to be a second class citizen or be treated as a proprietary class. And what you are seeing is, unfortunately, it's not a war, it's a response to oppression. That's how I feel. And I don't think those things are the same. When you tired of look at rates of whether it be DV, actual like a murder and things like that, statistics of like violence and abuse against women, on top of things like the pay gap and all types of stuff, right? Where do you see men being the casualties of women
But it's
in the same way?
it's very similar though to the comparison that you used on race, right? Because privilege never acknowledges its power. It doesn't have to, right? Because it is the benefactor of these systems, these ways, even if other populations have been disenfranchised in the process, right? So men have no need to acknowledge patriarchy, right? Or how it has benefited them, continues to benefit them. For them, their role is to continue to figure out how to keep it in motion, how to continue to
Mm.
uphold it. And so, what I see is women saying, I'm divesting from your system, right? And I'm going to speak up on it. I'm not going to be silent about the ways that I've been impacted, affected, or the ways that is perpetuating inequality, right? And so when you start looking at the strides that women are making that are surpassing men, whether that be in education, whether that be in business or starting businesses, none of it in the long run is going to serve men in ways that they want to discuss. And so there's always this rollback conversation that I see happening online about submission in that respect, right? To stay in the roles that women have historically traditionally been confined to, right? Your place is in the kitchen. Your place is in the bed, right? Because you need to have the
Barefoot and pregnant.
babies. Come on, your place is in serving me because that
Hmm.
benefits me. And so I think we're at this place where men really gotta be open to having a conversation about what systems do we have or are we willing to employ that benefit just men or that benefit more than just men.
Yeah.
And I think that's, yeah, recalibrating systems, going back to the drawing board. I think it's decentering men, it's all of that. And it's yeah, I think it's less of a war than it is I'm walking the fuck away.
Pretty much. And because of that, I think the dating landscape and all of the fallout of women choosing to walk away or choosing themselves or whatever the case may be, I think that's where men think there's a war. It's like, men have been essentially spreading lies about women since the beginning of time, even about what a woman's nature is and what comes natural to a woman. I've said this before, you don't know what comes natural to a woman because you've never left us the fuck alone long enough to figure out what it is we'll do. If left to our own devices, right? We've never, had that type of autonomy. And so they just create narratives for us throughout most of history. And then men refuse to acknowledge the ways that patriarchy is also harmful to them, which is why I don't be wanting to hear nobody in no anti-feminist rhetoric, because y'all don't actually engage with feminist literature. Feminism is for everybody. It's literally the title of a book from Bell Hooks. Like, what are you doing? But anyway, tell that to say, think women have begun to kind of tell their own truth, and women have started telling the truth on these men. And I don't think men like hearing about themselves. And this is I'm not gonna say that men don't like hearing about themselves from women, because if a rapper makes a song, Plies May ran off on the plug twice. You have rappers named Pooh Shiesty, Get It Back in Blood. Like, men will talk about how other men aren't shit all day long. They'll talk about how other men are predatory, how they don't have a backbone, how, you know what I'm saying? It's every other rap song is a pussy nigga in there. You know what I'm saying? So men can call other men cowards. Men can call other men ineffectual. Men can call other men broke and all types of stuff. And y'all will sing along to it, and it's lit. As long as they put that shit to a beat and it's another man saying it. Soon as a woman says, you know what? I that's also her experience with men. As soon as a woman said my experience with men has also been that. Soon as a woman co-sign on shit y'all already been saying about each other, it's a problem. Now it's women tearing black men apart. What are you talking about?
Well, can I speak to what I see part of that delusion as? Because I do think there's a confoundation of things that happen, right? So patriarchy is hierarchical, right? It's going from here to here. So I think there's this food chain that men establish amongst themselves about how they rank themselves and who's who. And when they sing
Mm-hmm.
these songs, every nigga feels or gets to feel like he's the top of the food chain, even when he knows he's not, right? Now
Mm.
you bring that into the subjection of being in a room with other men, and they go
Okay.
place themselves, which is why another man can say it, but you can't. Because also, if I know I'm lower in this food chain, then I ain't gonna say too much, because I ain't finna allow myself to be in a position to where
Yeah.
somebody can check me, right?
Right.
To
Right.
where you can actually show that I'm lower on this totem pole than you are, or in this
Mm.
hierarchical whatever. And I think when it comes to women, men feel like, because I always feel like I'm at the top of this food
Yep.
chain, you don't get to tell me I'm not, because I'm here to conquer you, right? And I feel like it's
Mm.
all this misogyny is so intertwined with patriarchy in terms of the way women are viewed, ownership of bodies, autonomy, our ability to have value beyond service, right? And so if you have no value other than what I give to you, and my role is to conquer you,
Mm.
then you're automatically out of place, one, for even speaking on it, because you don't
Facts.
have
Yeah.
the
When you put it like that.
you don't have the privilege or the autonomy, because that's what men do, right? And so for me, it's James Brown. This is a man's world, right?
Mm.
But it'd be nothing without the love of woman. Let's also add the
Yeah. For sure.
relationship
For
to that,
sure.
right? But the concept of what it means for it to be a man's world, and how men feel like they got to move in order to function in that way. And so that's what I say. I want to speak to part of that delusion, because I feel like there's always multiple things that are happening at a time intersectionally. And I don't know that men always acknowledge the intersection of those things, right? We talk
Mm.
about how patriarchy don't serve or support them. right? But also,
Not for real. Like it supports a certain demographic of them.
come on, it constricts the majority of them, right? In terms of not being
Correct.
able to be themselves in order to be able to perform for the likeness of these other males. And so I think
Yeah.
that's something that men got to really wrestle with too, because the homoeroticism that comes with that is very
It's crazy. It's wild. I'm telling you, it's no straight male culture. If you listen to me, straight male culture. It's homoerotic. It's fuck. You niggas love each other. Straight, especially American. I know conscious niggas like to talk about the fall of Rome and some other bullshit. I saw somebody make a post to talk about the gay white liberal media earlier today. You niggas are man loving as fuck. Your culture is extremely man loving and it's weird. And it's not even in a way where y'all actually care about each other because you got men's mental health month and instead of like sharing resources and really getting busy for each other for real and boots on the ground getting in the fucking field with your homeboys, like instead of taking advantage of those things, mentorship, providing mentorship to each other and to young boys, and instead of like building community for real with other men, we have a male loneliness epidemic in a culture that prioritizes maleness, and it makes zero fucking sense. Y'all live and breathe for the validation of each other and somehow can't be friends with each other. And it makes zero sense. Because there has, at some point, and don't get me wrong, because women do bogus things too. You know what I'm saying? You got the mean girls that want to all of a sudden join MLMs and think you're supposed to buy from them, right? I didn't like you in high school, bitch. Move around. And then it's like, and then not only that, it's those same mean girls or those catty women, messy women that then want to start businesses and host boss brunches and then and they halfway scamming on the cool. So there's not to say that women don't engage in fuck behavior, right? That's not what I'm getting at all. I'm just saying, even when it comes to women in some of the snake behavior that occurs amongst women, women have always been taught that we were competition with each other, right? And we live in a culture in totality that hates women and children. So it's natural that they get the programming. But we live in a culture that prioritizes maleness and is man loving. So I don't understand why men behave the way that they do with each other, especially once again when everything you do is for the attention of other men. How are you not able to build community with each other?
yeah. And I think there's a question of what that community looks like, because I think men have community amongst each other more than they do with anybody else. Strangely as it is, even in the midst of the
Yeah.
loneliness epidemic, right? Whether that's a gaming community, whether that's a fraternity community, whether that's the cigar bar, right? Like they will,
Or gangs.
yeah, or gangs, right? Because that's where our young men are finding it at now. Because we on the men who could be providing some form of mentorship pathway to success. They're providing less and less. And I would even say that our boys still have a good amount of programs that are out there. When you start looking at like organizations and what they're focused on, you
Hmm.
got more that are coming up for young girls.
Yeah, but the market is definitely saturated with programs for boys. Everything is geared towards boys and men, and somehow that's another topic for another day. That's another topic for another day.
Still missing that cohesion piece, right? And
Hmm.
it's culturally as a people, I think we've lost the mark on what roles need to be filled in our communities because we've made everything gender based, right? The men are supposed to do this, the women are supposed to do this. Now, can we talk about what skills need to be transferred? What things need to be
Yeah.
learned in order for us to actually be cohesive or be balanced and have what we need in order to grow and thrive? And because that's not a conversation, I feel like our men nor our women are actually showing up at our best or our highest capacity. And then we get together and then we got to argue about who's doing worse.
No facts though. And yeah, and that's why I didn't necessarily want to get too far into that. But that's real though. So then that leads me to the sip or spit, right? So, because you brought up the conversations we should be having and things like that, the conversation around gender as it stands, though, is that conversation helpful or harmful, right? And then as women, does decentering men like actually free us, or are we is it a trap? Are we setting ourselves up with yet another obstacle? What does that look like? And then like are we actually making bona fide attempts to heal from the patriarchy, or are we just creating like new hurdles, new obstacles, new battles for ourselves? So like we'll start with the first one. Do you think the conversations we having, do you think they're harmful or helpful?
I think the conversations in and of themselves could be helpful, but the way we are having them is harmful.
Okay.
And I say that because coming together and doing the blaming thing actually keeps
Mhm.
productivity from happening. I think we need to have a conversation, but I think everybody need to go to their corners. I think the women need to go over here with the women for a little while. I think the men need to go over here with the men. And I think as a group or a unit, we really need to figure out how we actually gonna
Yeah.
show up in community and one actually have healthy relationships where we can have these conversations with each other, right? But then two also form a baseline, right, of how we gonna govern ourselves, and then what is we gonna teach our kids, right? Because
Okay. True.
technically, the only thing that we are doing is giving what we've inherited from our systems of white supremacy, right? And until we actually start imagining and reconfiguring other ways of being, we're literally going to continue to perpetuate the oppression onto each other that has been perpetuated onto us because we are not liberating our mindset in any ways. And so I think
I
once we
agree with
get
that.
to a place where we can actually be cohesive and get along enough together on our
Mhm.
sides, then we can probably start to have some conversations together, where we can
Agree.
actually be
Agree.
accountable and be like, you know what, this is where we fucked up. We could have done these
Right.
things better. We could have shown up differently in these ways, but both parties got to be able to be in an accountable state. Otherwise, null and void. Did it? We're gonna argue for the next 10 centuries.
So then I have a question. I for sure feel like women have to be accountable for the ways that they perpetuate the patriarchy, right? Even in ways that are harmful to men and things like that. But I do, right? And tell me if I'm tripping. No, I do think the onus, unfortunately, is on men. Just the same way that I feel like when it comes to racism, white supremacist ideology, and all the things, the systems that were built by, you know what I'm saying, the institutions that are built upon racism and the progenitors and perpetuators of racism, unfortunately that being white people, and then the system that white people inherited, I think that's on them to solve racism. You see what I'm saying? So like racism is not a black issue for us to solve. We are the victims of it. And because of that, once again, I do feel like women have to be accountable in the ways they perpetuate harmful behaviors, harmful ideologies, and in doing so, raising a new generation who then continues the same cycle, right? Because even if we want to say that men are also parents and things like that, at the end of the day, for majority of households, especially even two-parent households that take on a more traditional outlook, the bulk of the child rearing is still the responsibility of women, right? And that's just me stating what it is. And so that's not to say you're a single mom. That's not to say you don't have help. What it means though is that even if you are in a two-parent household, if you are in a household with traditional values, that means that your mama is 9 times out of 10, that woman in the household 9 times out of 10 is going to be more hands-on with children, especially the young ones. All right. I say that to say women got to do their part, be responsible for the children they raise and the ideas that they perpetuate. However, though, I think the I think more of the onus, not solely on men, it's also on women. However, but I think more of the responsibility has to lie with men because they are the ones with the privilege. Therefore, they have more cachet, I guess, to even be able to fix the problem, if that makes sense. I mean, if, look, tell me if I'm tripping.
I think it's the women that got to shift a little bit. I think the women are the ones who hold the power and don't know the power that's held or don't know how to wield the power that's held.
Okay.
And I say
Break
that
that down for
because
me.
the validation. And you said of men, but I would say just of someone else, right?
Okay.
Because I think there's a piece of what they do in terms of action that's also aimed at the validation of women. Um, and I think women have to be more critical about what they validate,
Mhm.
what we validate, but also what we teach and how we allow those perpetuations to take shape in our lives, right? So I believe if women were to put more boundaries in place to say, I'm not dealing with certain behaviors, certain activities, certain ways that men come. I ain't
I'm gonna
saying
have
a
to give
full
you pushback,
Chirac.
fam.
I'm not saying a full Chirac, but
Fam,
maybe
I'm
a
gonna have to
half
give you
Chirac.
pushback only because
And you seen Chirac, right?
no. But here's my thing. Essentially, that's what women have been doing. Men told us pick better, we're doing so. And guess what happened in response? Red pill content. And then not only that, after red pill, then came black pill content. So
Okay, now
there's a
I know what
whole
red pill content is, but tell me what black pill content is.
black pill content is like the more dangerous form of red pill content. So
Got you.
it's supposedly when you're waking up to the truth that not only are women bad, most people are bad in general. Most people are incapable of loving, like of love, forming genuine connections. So it's a little different. It's that's when they get out there and want to actually like. So don't get me wrong, because women are harmed using red pill content, right? But like more so materially harmed when you get towards like the more black pill stuff.
Got you.
That's the more sinister, none of it matters, people don't really matter, none of us should probably be here anyway. Like
Got you. Okay.
it's yeah, it's basically like nihilism, but in a I don't know, it's nihilism
With a
unfortunately
with an
that
acceptable disconnect.
sparks from not being able to get bitches. I don't know how you
Mm.
but
Okay.
but
Okay.
But yeah, so and don't get me wrong, because red pill and
So
black pill
you
are
feel like we
both.
can't afford for no more men to not be able to access women or to like
We can afford it because I'm like, if it mean the extinction, then like so be it. Type that's where I'm at. So I definitely still agree with you that women have to like up the standards
yeah.
and let the weak motherfuckers fall off. Like it is what it is. May the cars rest where they may, however the saying go. And so I agree that women do have to set a standard and stand on this shit for real, for real. You got to stand on this shit. However, though, I do think the response to it, unfortunately, in a lot of cases, is going to be violent, though. That come with the consequences. Like it's already, you know what I'm saying, once upon a time you tell a dude no and it's like, well, fuck you too then, bitch, or you get shot, depending on where you at. It's only gonna get worse with red pill content. You see what I'm saying? Like it's only now those types of thoughts and behaviors are now becoming mainstream, which is the issue. The Overton window it has been kind of shifted. You know what I'm saying? And so
But without playing the blame game, if we said earlier that majority of children spend most of their time with
mhm,
their mothers,
correct. Or women in general, teachers, like the whole not women are like primary caregivers.
right? So the state that men have grown to be in,
Mhm.
do we feel like women have the power to correct that, or it can only be done with male presence?
Feel like women can correct it. I think it's going to be harder without male presence. Only because you can raise your kid a certain way, but once you send them out into the world, it's going to be something different because society still operates a certain way. And I'm more so on some don't necessarily prepare your child for the world, prepare the world for your child. So go out there and do the things, right? To make the world safer for future generations, even if it's just like one little thing at a time, right? But most people, unfortunately, are going to want to raise their child in a way that allows them to thrive in the current state. And unfortunately, for where we are right now as a country, that means a lot of behaviors that would like fall on that dark triad, right? Of like narcissism, Machiavellianism, and what is the other one? Ooh, I think it's sociopathy. So it's gonna those types of behaviors, more antisocial behavior, parasocial behavior, violence, and like I said, with the rise of red pill content, like those narcissistic behaviors and other things that unfortunately kind of so basically a lot of the behaviors that you think would be antithetical to building good relationships and things like that have become normalized. It's you're almost a target if you care too much, if you're too compassionate, if you're too empathetic, right? But that means that unfortunately, if you don't you either have to go especially hard to build resilient children, or you're gonna have to raise children that lack empathy, that lack that level of like, there's no way around it.
But ain't that where balance comes in, right? And I say that because they're gonna need some level of both, right? You need compassion and empathy in order for you to relate appropriately with your fellow man, human, your
Mhm.
fellow people. But also you need enough. I don't want to say wit, but yes, enough wit, enough awareness, and varieties of awareness, right?
Yeah, and you're gonna need that dark triad
Come on,
depending on
and
yeah,
where
depending
and
on what
what's
you
going
got
to
going on.
prevent incorrect
Mhm.
action or immoral action around you, and being in situations. So for me, I think there's a both and we suck at
Mm.
balance, at figuring out how to have the things that we need and integrate them in ways that actually are useful for us. And I think we got to figure out what that looks like, because as things continue to change, the backwards that we keep wanting to go back to, and we not going back
It's
to.
not yeah, that shit is done. It's done. It's
It's
done.
dead.
Meet me in the future. That's literally my motto. It's done. It's done. Alright, so then my next question, right? So so the next question was, how does decentering men, does they actually free us? Or like I said, is it just is it another setup? You know what I'm saying? I will say this. I think we do need to do another video on decentering men. However, I feel like as a woman who does not exclusively date men, I feel like the conversation is different because decentering men is easy for me because I can move through life in a way to where I never need to really seek male validation, right? I don't need it. I can survive without it. However, though, I think some of the conversations we have around decentering men are completely ignorant of the fact that most women still want to be in romantic relationships with men, and enough people aren't sensitive to that.
And I with that because you and I are kind of sit in similar positions. Um, People would actually say that I'm kind of traditional when it comes to like how I view family units and like raising kids, all the things. Like I am an advocate of male presence,
Mhm.
regardless of what that looks like. Right? You don't have to be in a romantic relationship to have a
Right.
positive male figure present and active in your life. Whether that's as a friend, as a romantic companion, as a co-parent, like there are a whole lot of different configurations. Um, but I agree with you, and I also feel that we're in a place where if men are experiencing the epidemic of loneliness, if men are dying earlier, especially those who get divorced or end up
Mhm.
without a companion, I think I think there's this thing where we have to figure out what our relationship to each other is gonna be beyond romance.
Well, I've been said that
And
friendship is the highest form of
because
love. We gotta figure something else
yeah,
out.
and because I think a lot of us have not figured out how to do that or what that looks like. It puts a limitation on how we see being in relationship with opposing genders. And if we can
Mhm.
crack the code on that, I actually think it would lead to more expansive relationships if it's possible. Majority of the times
Agreed.
when I hear that men and women can't be friends, I hear it from men.
Absolutely. Well, but that's some of them are still like looking at us as things to be consumed and commodify us, right? Like I said, proprietary, like they look at women as a proprietary class. And I think that's just them inheriting old ideas. I don't think they investigate their own claims far enough to understand how bogus that is.
Yeah, well, I think when yeah, I think our women got to find other ways to be in relationship with men. Cause like I even hear like some of my homegirls be like, I can't stand men, but every now and then I'm finna go get my rocks off. I got to go find, you know what I'm saying? I got to go scratch an itch.
Mhm.
Period. You know what I'm saying? Cause I still like men. I'm still actually physically, sexually attracted to men, even if I don't want to be. Right?
Right. Yeah. You can't, yeah. Contrary to popular belief, you can't help it. I would, if I could not like them at all, it'd be a dream come true. It would be a dream come true. But I don't know, black men is they be beautiful. But
Period. You know.
yeah, yeah.
And so those are the kind of things that I think that we got to start talking more about and being more open to. Yes, what does it look like with a relationship with somebody who you do not have access to consume? You
Okay.
know. And so
So then the next question that I asked was, so are we does it appear that we're finally trying to heal from patriarchy, or do you think we just kind of running in circles right now? Like what do you think?
we are
Yeah.
creating new battles that don't even need to be created. We ain't even won the old ones yet.
Y'all feel that. I feel no, that's fake.
And
That's fake.
it's pitting us against each other in ways that we're not going to be able to overcome it as a larger system that's connected to white supremacy, because that's actually how I see it. Not to
Hmm.
branch off that tree. And so
Yeah.
if we as black people are still upholding any of the branches, the tree still lives. And so
No, that's
all of
facts.
that goes back to us, and I say everything with learning, but figuring out what our traditional systems was and kind of how we engaged in it with each other and was able to build culture and community without
Hmm.
what we know now.
Yeah. Or finding ways to create our own traditions and new systems based on the results we want. But that requires us to actually be creative, be active, and engage for real. We got to lock the fuck in. But
Period.
yeah, yeah.
Period. I say healing.
All right. So,
This is
um, I definitely got hella books. Y'all know I keep some books. Obviously, like I said, Bill Hooks, Feminism is for Everybody. Definitely check that shit out. Roger Lord, I told you, you really need to just get this whole book. You know what I'm saying?
she is a
Sister
genius.
Outsider, The
Audre Lorde
Master's
and Bell
Tools. Would
Hooks.
yeah, I love it. And we got Men Who Hate Women, right? The Truth About Extreme Misogyny and How It Affects Us All. Also have a book. I have a book, For the Love of Men, From Toxic to a More Mindful Masculinity.
Yeah. Y'all give me back
Yeah,
my books,
like
or
it.
I'm gonna have my library.
Yes, I got to get mine together because I gotta. It's a bunch of books that I need to get on like actual physical copies because I don't be having time to sit down all the time no more. So I've been on audiobook run. Oh, and then another good one is so it's two of them that I would recommend. I'm trying to see if I got them down here so I can show you because they tend to work better when you can actually see them. One is called The End of Men. It's not what y'all think it is. Here it is. So you can see it. The End of Men and the Rise of Women is not what you think it is. This book is so good only because it's not talking about like she was in actually a debate called Are Men Obsolete? And she was on the side for yes of men being obsolete. However, though, this book explains her stance. This is extremely insightful because her thing is we need new views on masculinity and we gotta re-examine the patriarchy. And so that's what she's the end of men and how men are losing their identity, unfortunately, as times are changing. Like men who base their identity in their work, like factory workers, men who work with their hands, and there's the work landscape is changing and other things, right? And so just figuring out what it means to be a man and how every man needs to do that for themselves. Instead of subscribing to this one size fits all idea of manhood. Very insightful. It's not a bunch of I don't even know if I would consider her feminist, but it's not a bunch of anti-man drivel, I promise you. And then the last one is a book by David M. Buss. I don't have to fit my son actually is reading it, so it's in his room somewhere, but it's called When Men Behave Badly. It's basically a history of like like sexual violence, intimate partner violence, and things like that against women. And it's written by evolutionary psychologists. Very, very good.
So y'all definitely check those out. I was about to say, in order to find out whether we're whining or we're sipping or we're spitting this topic, y'all gonna have to come back for part two.
Period.
You're gonna have to come back
Period.
for part two, and you're gonna have to refill your cup because
Yeah. Yeah.
we're about to
Yeah. We definitely got you
go
on the
into
next
another
one.
dive on our teachable toes on this next one
Yeah.
to go a little
Yeah,
bit
we're gonna bring it
deeper.
home. We're gonna bring it home on the next one. But while we're here, I want y'all to think about it, right? Are you sipping? Are you spitting? How do you feel about the questions we just discussed?
Yeah, and what's What's
What do you
next?
think we're doing? What do you think we need to be doing?
What's beyond what's beyond the wars or the decentering? Like
Mm-hmm.
what's next? Right? Because that's what
What's
right.
next?
That's what
Yeah.
we talking about. Like we didn't lay
Yeah.
it down. That's what I said. Y'all figure out whether you sipping or spitting. Are we healing or hurting ourselves?
And let us know if you want to come talk about it. Let us know.
We
Come
gonna do
hop
a
on the
special
pod.
we sip with you. If we have sipped something
Yeah.
thus far that has ruffled your feathers or has made you want to lean in and say, "Girl, go ahead," because I sure understand. Okay, let us know. We want to know. But also, if you want to hop on, we welcome you.
Yeah.
So
All right.
hop in them comments, like, subscribe, send to your friend group, let your girls know it's a new one out that y'all need to be talking about. And we will see you here next week for part 2.
All right, y'all.